Extreme weather this morning continues to hit the United States. We showed you earlier the flooding overwhelming the Midwest, and an Arctic blast is finally chilling the Northeast, and California is preparing for a series of drenching storms. Heavy rain is already falling this morning outside San Francisco. Jeffrey Kluger is editor-at-large for Time Magazine and Time.com. He oversees coverage of science and human behavior. Jeffrey, welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
So what is going on with all this weather?
Well, here's what's happening. We're already coming off of what's the hottest year on record, 2015, and the hottest month in the hottest year was July. So think of the Earth as running a chronic fever. Now, on top of that chronic fever comes the acute fever of El Niño, which occurs when westerly winds that usually push warm Pacific water over to the west side of the Pacific weaken or reverse, allowing that warm water to slosh back east. That tends to heat up the North American hemisphere.
We're talking about El Niño because NASA says that satellite images show that this year's El Niño could rival the one of 1997, 1998 that killed 23,000 people worldwide. So what does that mean for us? It means the big snow that we're having in the Midwest. What else will it mean?
Well, it means the big snow we're having in the Midwest. It means the droughts we're seeing in Central America, which are imperiling 3.9 million people with food insecurity and 10.2 million people across Africa with food insecurity.
Wow.
We're also seeing the images you showed earlier this morning of the flooding across the Mississippi. We're going to see extreme heat spikes over the summer, which will affect vulnerable populations, older people, sickly people, very young people. So this could take a much bigger toll than the one in 1993.
Well, it was in the 70s on the East Coast for Christmas. It's the North Pole is 50 degrees higher, they say. So is this a new normal?
Well, this is a new normal, and the problem, I'm glad you brought up the North Pole, because what happens when the pole gets above freezing is that obviously the Arctic ice cap shrinks. Well, ice caps reflect sunlight back into space, but the smaller the Arctic ice cap gets, the more warmth that the dark waters can absorb. So you get sort of a dangerous feedback loop.
We haven't mentioned the word global warming.
Global warming is a very real phenomenon. Now, what I admire about the NASA scientists in these cases is they're acknowledging not every single weather event is linked to climate change. It certainly isn't. But if you're a heavy smoker, not every cold you get is going to be smoking related, but you know that a lot of them are, and you very much have to quit your pack-a-day habit if you want to stay healthy.
So given this, and you look at science and what looks like it's going to be a really tough year weather-wise, we know, though, that weather can affect national security, right?
Weather absolutely affects national security. Anytime you get food insecurity in any places of the world, you have a tendency for political unrest. Now, the U.S. is no longer, likes to say, we're not going to be the policeman of the world any longer, but still, people turn to us when you get this kind of problem. When the U.S. infrastructure is threatened the way it is along the Mississippi, the way it was in New Orleans 10 years ago, these are issues that divert funds, divert resources, divert energy, affect shipping. All of these things go straight to the heart of national safety.
So what can we do?
Well, what we can do, unfortunately, right now has to do with a lot of short-term steps we can take. There are sort of ameliorative steps. You can make sure that there are cooling centers for older people in the summer. You can make sure that we have water conservation in drought-stricken areas, that we have flood walls, levees in flood-prone areas. But we also have to be willing to say it's time to address this in the long term. The Paris Climate Accord was a very, very good sign. The U.S., as the world's leading emitter, has to be willing to take the lead also in curbing this problem.
Really important information.
Yes.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you so much.